Welcome to starter motor removal / installation. In this video I'll show you how to mount the starter motor. I have here on the bench one removed that has been cleaned on the inside and it works. I took it out here with this unit next to it so you can see something that's extremely hard to show when it's mounted on the engine. So removal first. On the starter motor here you will find a rubber boot which has some wires coming out somewhere here, and you're gonna have to, this was obviously damaged but cracked and everything, so you're gonna have to peel it back, and underneath you will find some bolts that you need to undo. So bolt, washer. So that part is called disconnect the starter motor. And of course when you're done with everything, you're going to put the washers back on and the bolt on top. You're going to need 2 wrenches, so hold one on this one and spin the other one so as there. Hold the wrench on the lower one and spin the upper one so you don't rip out the whole bolt with its inside the casing. So that's how it works. So first step for removal is disconnect the power, and last step for installation is connect the power. Next thing is it's got 2 bolts here that mount the starter, and those 2 bolts connect to the frame somewhere over here. Take a look at this one, fellas. The starter will mount somewhere here, and how do I do this? This one here where one bolt goes, and this spot here is where the other bolt goes. Okay. Sorry, camera fell over. So next part is remove these 2 bolts. Third one, remove the starter from the engine. Now that seems like uncomplicated, but it isn't, because this seal is a tight-fitting seal, so you might need to grab a screwdriver. What I have here is a metal ruler, but will work for as a screwdriver, between the case of the starter motor and the engine's case, and pry it a little bit on this side, a little bit on the opposite side, a little bit here, so that it's slowly inching out, because again this rubber seal here is a tight fitting one, and once it's out about ½ an inch, or I don't know, 6 millimeters, then it will come clear of the engine. It's going to be in your hand. Installation is trickier. That's why I have this other thing here. This other thing is inside the engine, and it's got some wires on it, and this one spins in operation. This thing is called the alternator because it makes alternating power. Another question came up: is a starter motor sort of like a generator? It's like a generator in reverse. Yes. Once the rotor inside the starter motor is energized through this bolt here, power comes in. It will convert electrical energy into motion, and then this is gonna spin, but it's so hard to spin it, so I can't freehand. And this unit here is an alternator. An alternator is like a generator, but generator is what's sold in a store, and it got its own gas tank and pull cord on it, and you know, that's a generator. But if this unit is ran by the engine, and as this one is ran through these kind of chains, this magnet here is spinning in the middle, and the rotor is spinning, and in the stator, the stationary wire coils, it generates electricity, which then is through this cable is taken to charge the battery and to operate your turn signals and everything. But so that's an alternator here. And starter motor. Back to starter motor installation. When you put the starter motor back in the engine, you can see that this part may or may not stay in the engine, but either way you're gonna have to mesh this gear here. How do I do that? This big gear here and this one on the starter motor, you have to mesh them together, and sometimes when you try to install the starter motor it's gonna hit, so you have to spin the starter shaft a little bit and, you know, figure it out and figure out a position where these two mesh. There's only one way they mesh correctly, and when they do, the starter motor should be inside the casing fully. So I'm not gonna do the alternator, I'm just gonna put the starter motor on so I can show you one more thing. There, see what I'm doing? Oops, camera collapsed again. There, I'm trying to push it into its place. There, it's in, and just get started with one bolt. But even with the case empty, this is an engine half, even with it's empty, the rubber seal on the starter motor is takes a little fiddling. And have a look inside what's happening here. And the starter motor got installed there. That's the gear that I just put on the starter motor, thereabouts. That's why I chose to shoot it from this way. Let me see. This is where the alternator mounts, but that's not very spectacular, so it's dark in there. That's why I took them off the engine there. So that's how you mount a starter motor. You have to mesh it to the alternator's gear. Sometimes the starter cranks not the alternator, it might crank the the crankshaft directly or any other shaft. Either way, it's gonna be meshing to another gear, and it takes some fiddling to mount the starter motor back on.